Hi guys, I wanted to record this video to share about my experience, spiritual awakening and dark night of the soul that I have been navigating the last 4 years or so. And it's not about teaching how it happens, what happens, different stages of it. There is so much information already. And if you suspect that's what's happening with you, there is a lot already that's been kind of discussed. But I just wanted to give a very raw and unfiltered accounts of my personal life and how it all started for me and what eventually, well, what's, different kind of stages I've encountered. And this is like totally unscripted. So if I go back and forth, please excuse me, but I'm just hoping for someone who is really dealing with this maybe anxiety or like severe anxiety, loss of identity, where you just can't find place for yourself, you can't connect with people, your friendships does not feel like friendships anymore, and you don't know what on earth is going on with you. I'm hoping that this can help. So it all started back in about 2017, and back then I was working as a consultant. I was designing systems for large institutions and organizations. So I had a very successful six-figure career. And then it's like almost overnight, this switch just like turns. And I looked at my work, I looked at who I was, how I was showing up at home and my relationships at my career. And I was like, felt something just isn't right here anymore. The thing is, like outwardly, I've always been a very confident person. I was I guess, a high achiever. I've competed in Commonwealth Games. I've had a successful career, a marriage and children. But internally, I was very unstable, meaning that I thrived on a sense of approval and recognition. And when I did not have it, I would crumble. There would be like a lot of emotional outbursts, either externally or internally. I would really judge myself and try to make everybody happy. Fearing like disappointing someone felt like death to me, really. And I would do anything to fix it because I always thought I was responsible for everything. And it was so subconscious that I've lived like that my entire life. But all of a sudden, I started feeling it more acutely. And I thought to myself, wow, why am I walking on eggshells, on eggshells around my husband back then, my ex-husband now? Why am I, why do I feel so confident? I feel like I'm really good at what I do at work. But the moments I get, let's say, performance review, where I don't really like how they reviewed me, I would start doubting myself. It would literally like crush me for days. Or why is it that when I go out with friends and we don't have a good time like I want to have, I feel so responsible. I feel like everything is my fault. And I started feeling it more and more, and especially at work, despite, the money I was making, I was thinking, is this all? Like for me, the big thing was, what if I wake up 15, 20 years later and I'm still doing the same thing? And for me, that just felt like a total waste of my life. But the problem is that I didn't know what else I could do. I wasn't qualified to do anything, computer programming, that's what I've done, workflow design, those were my skills, and I was pretty good at it. So I was so confused. I was like, what the hell is going on with me? So then it was about 2018, and that was the first time I listened to Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I always talk about him, how that one episode I listened to changed the entire trajectory of my life. If you guys not familiar with him, I do suggest just go and watch him on YouTube. He's on many podcasts. So that was the first time I listened to him on a way to work, and it just created a deep sense of resonance. It's like for the first time I felt that was the information, not for the first time, but for the first time in a long time. I felt like it wasn't something new I was hearing. It's more I was remembering it. And I didn't really have the framework to describe what I was experiencing, but all I remember just going to the office, downloading his audiobooks and downloading his meditations, even though I've tried to meditate before, but it just didn't work for me. I was kind of a person who would rather get up and go for a 10-mile run than waste my time meditating. But that was really started the change for me. And I became kind of obsessed. So when Dr. Joe came to UK, that was 2018, November, he was in Brighton for a 7 days retreat. I went there. And the stuff that I witnessed there, well, I could literally say blew my mind. We had like spontaneous remissions from Parkinson's, from fibromyalgia. There were people who were describing their battle with cancer stage 4 and how they healed themselves. I've seen people's bodies literally been lifted with the with the energy that was going pulsating through them and just shoved to the other side of the hallway. And those 7 days there, they have had such an impact on me that when I got back to my reality, I knew that I couldn't do that anymore. I didn't know what I wanted, but I felt that what I was living, the life I was living, it was how I believed I should live in order to be successful, to be respected, to be happy, to be loved. But that was not my truth. So I continued meditating obsessively, and relationship at home with my ex-husband started getting progressively worse because I've just changed so much and I couldn't shove myself back into that mentality that I've been operating in for so many years. So I then started researching things like helping, how can I help people? Oh, hold on, I'm going to actually go back to the event itself with Dr. Joe because something incredible happened there with me. We had this meditation. The meditation was stepping into our future, and we had to visualize, which kind of how we want to create our future with our minds, because we always creating our reality. It's just most of the time our focus is going towards which we don't want to create, but we still create it. So there we were learning how to change our focus and direct it towards we wanted. And I remember seeing those two scenarios very vividly. One, I was working with elderly people. I was sitting there surrounded by elderly people, and they were very happy and they were hugging me, and I was like having conversations. And I was like, well, that's weird because I had no inclination of doing anything like that. I mean, I was in IT, so I always was interested in sports, and I thought maybe like becoming a personal trainer. That didn't make sense, but I remember having this thought that, well, if one day I run a business like that, I'm going to call it Driving Miss Daisy, like a movie. I think it's Denzel Washington, isn't it? I can't remember, or Morgan Freeman, one of them. And I said, okay, I'm going to call it Driving Miss Daisy. And the second scene was even stranger. I was standing in a room of a hotel, like overlooking, I was like on a 10th floor or 15th floor, I don't know, but really, really high up. And I was mic'd up. I had a mic here. And then somebody was saying to me, Elena, it's your time to get on a stage. And the next minute I was on a stage with so many people in front of me. And I knew that I was delivering a speech saying something. I don't even know what. And that was even weirder because I had a insane fear of public speaking. So, anyways, I get back home, as I said, and I started researching, how can I start a charity or how can I volunteer? Except I have no time to volunteer. I've got 2 kids, a full-time job, things like that. So then about a month goes by and I receive a response from Age UK saying that, well, don't waste your time or money or energy starting a charity, but there is a franchise that operates also not far from where you live. And it might be worth getting in touch with them. They specialize in companionship and transport for elderly people. And the name is Driving Miss Daisy, like the same name that came to me when I was at Dr. Joe's event. So obviously I rang up the branch. The two ladies, they came and they said my area was available. And the guys, I kid you not, within a week, I went to the bank, I took out a loan, and I bought this franchise. I didn't even think about it. I've never run a business before. I had no clue what I was doing. My ex-husband and my mom were sitting there with the spreadsheets trying to calculate if it made sense, how much money I need to invest, how much money I'll lose, all of that. And I was like, don't even show it to me. I just don't care what the number says. I just know it's the right next step. And that, I think, that was the end of my marriage. So I've started this business and I've hired my first employee. And a few months later, my contract came to an end and I was offered another contract, but I just decided to go all in. I thought, I'm just done. I can't keep on doing this job, even though it was paying all the bills. Now, we had two kids, both in private schools. We had a mortgage. I also had a flat, and we just had so many expenses. But call me delusional. And that's what I probably was. I was like, no, I'm going to focus on business. I also got into network marketing and I started selling some other products. And I thought, you know what? If I just hire coaches, if I hire mentors, if I just get somebody to tell me what to do, I'll become like, I'll just replace my income like that. But that didn't happen. COVID happens. And my driving business came to pretty much, well, it just wasn't operating because most of our clients, all of our clients, in fact, were vulnerable and they were isolating. So I started doing more network marketing. I was working like insane, 12, 14 hours a day. I was pushing, I was meditating, I was visualizing. I had the charts, I had the vision board, I had anything, everything you can imagine I was doing, but I just couldn't make it move. I've invested 40,000 pounds at that stage in all different coaches to learn how they make the money. I remember even investing in this program, how to make 10K in 30 days. Well, I gave her 10K, but I didn't make a penny back. Anyhow, so that madness carried on for a while, and then my business started running again, the driving business, but my passion for it was gone. I still loved my clients, but there was so much bureaucracy, there was so many rules, there was so many red tapes, there was so much paperwork, and I just couldn't cope with it. I just thought this ridiculous. All I want to do is help people. I need to do all of these crazy things. So I got fined. I got pretty much arrested because my license, one of my many licenses, is expired. Then my one employee left and wanted to take me to court for not paying something for, I didn't even know what I was meant to pay her. We eventually managed to settle it in an amicable way. It was just constantly one thing after next. I felt like life was testing me. It was throwing one curveball after next. And I was getting worried. I was like, well, we sold a house after we separated. So I had some money in the bank, but I've invested so much and I wasn't getting any money back. And eventually I managed to actually find a remote job and got paid a good salary. So I was running a business and remote job in parallel. But in the meantime, what started happening is I actually went on dating sites. For some reason, I had this, well, I kept having those dreams that I need to get back into a dating world. And I tried to ignore it, but the pull was just so strong. And I was like, well, what's the worst can happen? Well, what happened was I met someone with whom we had this crazy connection. And I'm not going to go into details, but all I want to say for those of you listening, maybe familiar with twin flame, that's basically happened. Even though I don't really believe in twin flames, I just believe in awakening, that we need that, a catalyst in our life to blow everything apart for us to really go through so much darkness and through so much pain to come back to our true selves, because willingly, nobody in their sane mind would ever go on the journey. So that was my catalyst. Within a few months, I went from, somebody who could work, who puts energy and effort and try to figure things out and always took action, lying flat on a couch with so much fear and so much anxiety that I really didn't think I will make it. In all honesty, I thought I went insane. Um, and I just remember one day I was lying there and I was I didn't really know much about nervous system back then, but it was obviously completely dysregulated. And I started praying, and I've never been religious. Like I meditated, I did all of that, but I started praying. I'm like, God, what is this? And the answer I got back, it's saying, you're not going crazy, you are being purified. Everything responds to your energy. Your only job is to trust. So that made absolutely no sense to me. Um, but in the meantime, while I was going through all of this, what started happening is I started receiving the invitations to speak literally all over the world. I went all over Europe. I went to Canada. I went to Zimbabwe. I was speaking on building inner resilience, on emotional regulations, on all of these things that I so wanted to have for myself. But no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't cultivate them. I knew all the tools and all the techniques. I've been doing this work for long enough by that stage, but I couldn't shift my internal state. However, the feedback I was receiving was incredible. So, and that was another interesting thing, all this, the few years prior, how I saw me speaking on a stage, and that literally became my reality. So, and that actually was the only time where that insane fear would leave me for a few minutes when I would be on stage and speaking. And that's when my nervous system would calm down and I could actually function like a normal human being. Away from that, my mind was just going absolutely insane. I remember watching like 10, 20 tarot readings a day on YouTube, hoping that somebody would just say something that will bring me that momentarily relief. And luckily, I had a really good friends who I met through one of the coaching. Well, I had two really good friends, maybe even three, but one of them, we spoke to them. I spoke to her all day through the day. And I think it really helps to pull each other through those moments. She was also on a kind of similar journey to mine. And it became so unbearable that I literally had no energy. And sometimes I had no will to live. I would be so anxious and I'd have so much fear that if I didn't get a response from that person to my message, I would start shaking. My stomach would get upset. I would have like my throat blocked and I get very, very dizzy. So again, like I didn't understand what's happening. And that's how I then came across nervous system regulation. I realized, oh, wow, hang on a second. My nervous system is completely dysregulated. What I'm responding is not to this event itself, because let's be honest, if somebody doesn't text you back, you're not going to die. But you would die is when you're a child feeling abandoned by your parents when you don't know whether they're coming home or not. And that wasn't really my life, but a lot of things did happen to me that I interpreted that way. So just to give you a brief example, I was growing up in Russia in a city called Rostov-on-Don. And when I was 11, we had the cannibal running around and he would be murdering people and turning them into mincemeat to eat them. I don't know, whatever he was doing with them. And he was running his operation very close to where my parents worked. And I remember every evening I would stand there looking outside the window, waiting for them to get off the bus. So, when I was a lot younger, I mean, I would go to nursery by myself when I was 5 or 6. My parents were working. It was pretty safe. But because I was an only child, I was alone most of the time. My parents would go to work early morning, they come home 6 or 7 at night, and it's just me all day long. So even though, I managed to kind of keep myself busy, I guess there was so much suppression of this fear of being alone, of the fear of being abandoned, of the fear of being rejected. And then when I was 13, we immigrated to Israel, where I was the new kid who didn't speak the language. And as I started learning the language and, settling in, making friends, my parents took me to South Africa a year later. So there was another new country, new language, new kids to fit in. And it's really difficult when you're 14, and especially when you don't speak the language. So I've learned how to settle, how to suppress my needs, how to put others on a pedestal. And all of that was obviously protecting me for so many years. That's how it helped me to create successful career, to get to the stage where I could compete at Commonwealth Games and, to run marathons and ultra marathons. It made me exceptionally physically and probably mentally resilient, but emotionally, I had no foundation to stand on. There was nothing. That's why I had this like massive outburst. I couldn't control my anger. I couldn't control my frustration. I always thought it was somebody out there that's doing it to me. And when someone criticized me or when they looked at me funny, it just like my whole world would collapse. It just was excruciating pain. So anyway, with that person, we went our separate ways. And interestingly enough, the videos that started churning up on my YouTube feed were all about spiritual awakening and twin flames. And I started listening to them because they were kind of reaffirming that I haven't gone crazy. And that was a big, big relief. So then as that was happening, I also lost my job, and that was the only safe source of income. While in the midst of all that, I got they let me go because it was kind of end of the contract, and I tried to find something and I couldn't, and I was literally running out of money. And my son was in private school, so when we separated, we said, I'll pay for my son, my ex-husband will pay for our daughter. And I'm living in this nice place, like 3 stories, 3 bedrooms, for which I also have money. And I was freaking out. But as we say, universe always finds a plan to support us. So I got some support through governments, and I'm just immensely grateful. And school also agreed to support me. And for a while, I didn't want to date. I just wanted to recover and feel better. But something kept pushing me. It's like, get back on a dating site, go check your triggers, because already was, becoming super aware of them. And I thought maybe it was just happening with that person. But guess what? It wasn't. There was another person in my life, and the same fears, the same emotional sensations came over my body. And then I met my partner about a year and a half ago, and I thought, if I will ever, if I ever want to create a relationship, I've got to be transparent. I can't hold myself back. I can't suppress what I want and what I need. So I think on our second date, I told them how I was reacting, how important it was for me. The texting was the biggest pain for me. And that if he couldn't give that to me, I totally got it, but I can't be in a relationship because right now I need to focus on my business, on my kids, on my life, on figuring out how to make money. So if he can't give that to me, then we can't be together. And anyway, it's been a long journey for us, a year and a half. And over time, we have grown, both of us together. There were times where I literally thought I can't do it. I had massive emotional outbursts on the phone. I called it quits. I walked away because it was too hard for me. But we pulled through. And I also decided to ask for support from the medical side, from the doctors, whom my spiritual ego completely denied, saying I can do it all by myself, but I couldn't because I'm not just that spiritual, energetic body, but I'm also a physical body. So I actually went on the anti-anxiety tablets the last few months, and it has been helping me, even though I still feel it sometimes, but it's a lot easier. And eventually, and also, I stopped trying to fix myself so hard. I started accepting I have these issues. I have the darkness. I have the intensity. I have the neediness and insecurity, and that's okay. That's what makes me me. And I struggle to tell people how I feel about them. And there's so many things that I completely could be fucked up about me, but that's me. And God put me on a planet. God has chosen me. So therefore I am chosen. I am important. I do deserve place in this life. And if somebody doesn't see me for who I am, if somebody doesn't appreciate what I bring into this relationship, then it's just not the right person for me. So, anyways, that's pretty much it, what I wanted to share with you. And if you suspect that you're going through spiritual awakening, if you find it very hard to navigate your life right now where things literally don't make sense, you're feeling anxiety or grief or anger, whatever that emotions, coming out for you, one thing I want to suggest is that you stop fighting it, you stop resisting it, you stop making it wrong about yourself and fixing it, because it's the it's the resistance that creates the suffering. It's already painful going through that, but the more you resist it, the more you suffer. Um, I might make further videos talking about different stages and also what really helped me. And by the way, I'm not saying it's the end of this. I really don't think so. But I know being on this for almost 4 years is I'll probably never get that kind of energy back or that effort. Like I can't effort anymore. I stopped caring things about so much, or not even caring things, but I stopped caring whether I get them or not. The outcomes became irrelevant to me. Whether I get that speaking gig or not, it doesn't matter. Whether somebody agrees with me or not, it doesn't matter. Apart from my partner, that I'm still working on. I still kind of contract when his mood changes, but I'm so aware of it. And I know that's something I've still got to step more into. Um, but yeah, it's constantly growing and evolving. There's no end to it. There's just more awareness. And also just doing things that feel uncomfortable, that feel scary, that don't guarantee any outcome, starting small and building up from that. That's what helps you to build that inner resilience and self-trust. And self-trust doesn't mean that, of course, I'm going to have it. Of course, I'm going to get it. It's like, that's why those affirmations never worked for me. I'm like, well, how do I know? How do I know? Of course, I'm going to end up with this person. How do I know? How do I know it's the best thing for me? God has better plans for me, which I'm not even aware of. And it always turns out that way. Like from my limited perspective and this human little mind filled with fear, worries, and doubts, I don't even know what the hell is best for me. So self-trust really means that you trust yourself to handle no matter what happens to you, that you will be okay, whether you get that thing or not. So yeah, good luck, guys. And let me know in the comments if this resonated, if that was helpful, and if you've got any questions, I'm here for you.